Steptoe and Son, the iconic British sitcom that first aired in 1962, has left an indelible mark on the landscape of television comedy. While the series was lauded for its wit and humor, it also became the subject of intrigue due to the real-life tensions and scandals that plagued its main actors, Harry H. Corbett and Wilfrid Brambell. Join Facts vs. UK as we explore everything from on-set tensions to public controversies and lesser-known facts of Steptoe and Son. The genesis of the show. The inception of Steptoe and Son was anything but ordinary. Originally conceived as a single episode for the anthology show Galton and Simpson's Comedy Playhouse, the creators Ray Galton and Alan Simpson saw potential in the story of two rag-and-bone men, a father and son duo living in a dilapidated house in London. The BBC quickly recognized the show's promise and commissioned a full 6-episode series. It was an immediate hit, running initially from 1962 to 65 and a second spell from 1970 to 74. The show's creators, Galton and Simpson, were already well-known figures in the British comedy scene, having previously worked on the famous radio comedy Hancock's Half Hour. Their vision for Steptoe and Son was to create a comedy that also reflected the social issues of the time, like class struggle and family dynamics. The choice of the rag-and-bone profession for the main characters was symbolic, representing a dying trade and the struggle to adapt to a rapidly changing world. The casting of Harry H. Corbett and Wilfrid Brambell was a stroke of genius. Corbett, a method actor trained in Joan Littlewood's left-leaning theater workshop, brought depth to the character of Harold, the ambitious but frustrated son. Brambell, on the other hand, was an actor of the Learn It and Do It school, perfectly fitting the role of Albert Steptoe, the disheveled and often crude father. Their on-screen chemistry was electric, but as we'll explore later, their off-screen relationship was much more complicated. At its peak, the show attracted audiences of over 20 million and even caught the attention of political figures. Labor leader Harold Wilson once attempted to have an episode postponed because it was scheduled on the same evening as the general election. The dynamic duo. The heart and soul of Steptoe and Son lay in the complex relationship between its two main characters, Harold and Albert Steptoe. The duo's on-screen chemistry was electric, a perfect blend of tension, humor, and underlying affection that made the show a cultural phenomenon. But the story behind their partnership is a tapestry of contrasts, talent, and real-life tensions that added an extra layer of complexity to their performances. Harry H. Corbett, born in Burma to British parents, had a challenging upbringing that saw him orphaned at an early age. He found solace in acting, training at Joan Littlewood's theater workshop, a cradle for method actors. He was versatile, equally comfortable in Shakespeare and modern drama. But it was his portrayal as Harold Steptoe, the ambitious yet perpetually frustrated son, that catapulted him to national fame. He brought depth to Harold that was rarely seen in sitcom characters of the time. On the other side was Wilfrid Brambell, an Irish actor with a career spanning theater, film, and television. He was not a method actor, and he was best known for his role as Paul McCartney's fictional grandfather in the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night before landing the role of Albert Steptoe. Brambell's portrayal of Albert was a masterclass in comedic timing and physical comedy. But both actors were intensely private people, and their differing approaches to acting often led to tension on set. Despite these tensions, though, both actors respected each other's craft, a professional courtesy that allowed them to create one of the most memorable partnerships in television history. The scandal that almost ended it all. In the midst of Steptoe and Son's soaring popularity, a scandal erupted that threatened to derail not just the show, but also the careers of its leading actors. Wilfrid Brambell, who had become a household name, found himself at the center of a legal storm that shook the British entertainment industry to its core. In 1965, Brambell was arrested on charges of importuning, a term used at the time to describe the act of soliciting men for homosexual acts. The arrest was part of a broader crackdown on homosexuality, which was still illegal in Britain in 1967. The news of Brambell's arrest sent shockwaves through the nation. The BBC, which had invested heavily in the show, faced a moral and ethical dilemma. Initially, they chose to suspend Brambell and put the show on hiatus. The public's reaction was mixed. While some called for his immediate firing, others argued his personal life should not affect his professional standing. The legal proceedings that followed were highly publicized, with the media dissecting every detail. Brambell, for his part, maintained his innocence throughout the trial. The case went to court, where Brambell was acquitted due to lack of evidence. But the damage was done to his reputation. The BBC, sensing the public's waning support for Brambell, contemplated recasting the role. Several names were floated, but none could replace the chemistry Brambell had with Corbett. And in a surprising turn of events, public sentiment began to shift. Letters poured into the BBC, most of them in support of Brambell. Fans argued his personal life had no bearing on his professional capabilities. They reinstated Brambell, and the show resumed production. The downfall. Every great story has an ending, and for Steptoe and Son, the final chapter was one of gradual decline rather than a sudden collapse. After years of captivating audiences, the show began to lose its luster. The reasons were multifaceted, a combination of changing societal norms, creative exhaustion, and the personal struggles of its leading actors. By the early 70s, the British television landscape was undergoing a transformation. New shows were pushing the boundaries of comedy and drama, making Steptoe and Son seem somewhat dated in comparison. And the creators, Ray Galton and Alan Simpson, were also feeling the weight of keeping the series fresh. After nearly a decade of writing for the same characters, they found it increasingly challenging to come up with original and engaging storylines. The personal lives of Corbett and Brambell were also taking a toll on the show. Corbett was dealing with health issues, including a heart condition that limited his ability to take on strenuous roles. Brambell, still haunted by the scandal that almost ended his career, was becoming increasingly reclusive. The chemistry between the two, once the show's driving force, was waning. Despite attempts to revitalize the series, introducing new characters and exploring different themes, the magic was gone. The show's ratings began to dip, and the decision was made to end the series in 1974. The Controversies. One of the most significant controversies revolved around the show's depiction of the British working class. Critics argued that the characters of Harold and Albert perpetuated negative stereotypes, painting a grim and often demeaning picture of life in working-class Britain. The rag and bone profession, while symbolic of a dying trade, was also seen by some as a derogatory representation of the working class, reducing them to caricatures rather than nuanced people. Another point of contention was the show's treatment of family relationships. The dysfunctional dynamic between the duo was at times criticized for normalizing toxic behavior, from emotional manipulation to outright verbal abuse. While the creators defended these portrayals as realistic and reflective of complex family dynamics, some viewers felt the show crossed a line. The show also faced backlash for its lack of diverse representation. In an era marked by social and cultural upheaval, Steptoe and Son was notably lacking in characters from diverse backgrounds, a point that did not go unnoticed by contemporary critics. The show's creators were often questioned about this, to which they responded that their focus was on the relationship between the two main characters rather than creating a diverse ensemble cast. Now it's time to hear from you. What's your favorite memory of Steptoe and Son? Let us know in the comments section below.